protect and teach. As night fell, Jason activated the orb to project soft light, illuminating the clearing. The girls sat beside him, their small faces reflecting wonder and excitement. They had survived danger, learned to trust, and now were witnesses to a human unraveling the secrets of an alien gift. Jason reflected on what he had discovered. The orb was not just a reward, it was a bridge between species, a symbol of respect, and a tool to survive and thrive in a dangerous world. Its secrets were vast, and he would need time to understand them fully. But one thing was clear: humans were capable of courage, cleverness, and empathy that even advanced alien species recognized and rewarded. Before drifting into sleep, Jason looked at Kira and Luma. Their trust in him was complete now. They had seen his bravery, his cleverness, and his compassion. The orb pulsed softly beside them, a reminder that courage and intelligence were recognized universally, not just by humans, but by beings across the galaxy. High above, the jungle shimmered in moonlight. Distant predators called and hidden dangers stirred. Yet inside the small clearing, there was safety, hope, and a bond formed by courage and trust. Jason whispered softly, "We've survived today, and together we'll face whatever comes next." For the first time, the alien girls smiled with confidence, no longer afraid. They had learned that bravery was not only strength, it was cleverness, patience, and the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. And with the orb's secrets now beginning to unfold, they knew their journey with this human was only just beginning. The jungle of Zyphora glowed softly under the twin moons, but the air was tense. Jason, Kira, and Luma had survived predator attacks, hostile scouts, and hidden dangers, but now the final test awaited. The alien mother had promised a reward, and Jason could feel its significance in the pulsing orb at his side. As dawn approached, a familiar shimmer appeared through the thick trees. The mother had returned, her presence commanding and majestic. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, focused not only on her daughters but on Jason. For a long moment she simply observed, as if weighing every action he had taken in the past days. Jason stood tall, placing himself between the girls and the alien mother. Kira and Luma held his hands, their small faces reflecting a mixture of awe and excitement. The mother approached slowly, and for the first time Jason realized that her attention was not threatening but reverent. She had seen courage, intelligence, and empathy across species, and recognized it. The orb pulsed in response to her presence, expanding slightly and projecting holographic images of the past days. Scenes of Jason protecting the girls, outsmarting predators, and guiding them through dangers appeared in mid-air. The mother watched each carefully, her glowing eyes narrowing and then widening in silent approval. She spoke in her melodic language, her gestures precise and meaningful. Jason did not understand her words, but the meaning was clear. She was offering recognition and trust, acknowledging that humans could act with bravery, intelligence, and compassion, even in the face of unknown and dangerous worlds. Jason stepped forward slowly, nodding respectfully. He gestured toward Kira and Luma, signaling that they were safe and under his care. The mother's eyes softened and she reached out to touch the orb. The light inside shifted and formed a single beam toward Jason, flowing around him like a protective shield. This was no ordinary reward. This was an honor, a mark of recognition across species. The girls watched silently, their small hands squeezing Jason's. They understood that he had not only saved their lives but had earned the respect of their most powerful protector. Luma's eyes shone with admiration and Kira's gaze reflected pride. For them, Jason was more than a human. He was a hero, a teacher, and a friend. Suddenly, the jungle shimmered with the arrival of other alien beings. Scouts, predators, and watchers who had observed from afar. None dared approach. The mother's presence, combined with the recognition of Jason's courage, had created a bubble of respect and protection. Even the dangerous creatures paused, sensing the shift in power. Jason realized that this moment was more than survival. It was a test of humanity itself, a proof that humans could face danger with intelligence, courage, and empathy, and earn trust from the most advanced alien species. He glanced at the girls, their eyes wide with wonder, and felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. The mother lowered her hand and touched each girl gently. The orb's light formed a bridge between them and Jason, symbolizing the bond of trust, courage, and shared survival. Jason felt a warmth flow through him, a recognition not just from an alien species but from the universe itself, acknowledging human bravery and intelligence. As the twin moons reflected on the glowing jungle, Jason spoke softly to the girls, using simple words and gestures. "We've survived everything. We've faced danger together. And now the galaxy knows what humans can do." Kira and Luma smiled, their small faces radiant with trust and admiration. The alien mother stepped back, her body glowing softly, and projected a final message through the orb. A map of distant star systems, symbols of advanced technology, and signs of peaceful alliances. Jason understood immediately. This was not just a reward, it was an opportunity, a chance to bridge worlds, share knowledge, and build trust across species. He looked at the jungle around him, at the glowing plants, the hidden dangers, and the creatures that had once threatened them. Everything seemed calmer now. The bond he had formed with the girls and their mother had created safety, understanding, and a path forward. Human courage, intelligence, and empathy had triumphed, not through weapons, but through wisdom, bravery, and care. Kira reached up and hugged Jason's arm while Luma nestled against his side. Jason knelt, wrapping his arms around both of them gently. The orb floated above, pulsing softly, projecting a soft light that reflected hope, courage, and recognition. In that moment, Jason knew that humanity had left its mark on Zyphora, not through domination but through kindness, bravery, and cleverness. The alien mother gave a final nod, her form shimmering like liquid light. Then, with grace and authority, she turned and walked into the jungle, leaving Jason and the girls with the orb, knowledge, and trust. The jungle seemed brighter, calmer, and alive with potential. Jason looked at Kira and Luma, their faces filled with joy and trust. He whispered, "We did it. We showed them what humans are capable of." The girls smiled, hugging him tightly. They knew that together they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. High above, the twin moons cast their soft glow over the jungle. The orb pulsed gently, a symbol of recognition, courage, and connection across worlds. Jason had survived danger, protected the innocent, and shown that human intelligence and bravery could shine even in the most alien and dangerous corners of the universe. For the first time, the jungle felt truly peaceful. Humans, aliens, and the bond of courage and empathy had triumphed. And in that moment, Jason understood something deeply true. Humanity's greatest power was not in strength alone, but in the courage to care, the intelligence to act, and the heart to protect. The jungle was alive with soft glowing lights as dawn broke over Zyphora. Jason had stayed awake most of the night, keeping watch over Kira and Luma. The two tiny alien girls had begun to sleep more soundly now, their trust in him growing stronger with each passing hour. But a new presence filled the air, a weight that Jason could feel in his chest. High above, through the thick foliage, a shadow moved. It was larger than any predator he had encountered, with a graceful yet commanding presence. Kira stirred in her sleep, sensing the change. Luma's eyes fluttered open and she whimpered softly, clutching her sister. Jason moved in front of them protectively. From the shadows emerged the alien mother, tall and majestic, her skin shimmering with colors that shifted like liquid light. Her eyes glowed softly, intelligent and piercing. Every step she took seemed deliberate, her gaze fixed on the small figures huddled near Jason. The jungle seemed to quiet itself in her presence, the glowing plants dimming slightly as if bowing to her. Jason's heart raced. He had faced dangers before, predators, hostile aliens, harsh worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. The mother was not just dangerous. She commanded authority and strength. He did not know what she would do. Would she attack, demand her daughters back, or worse, blame him for disturbing their lives? Kira stirred, sensing her mother's presence. She reached out instinctively, holding Jason's hand for comfort. Luma mirrored her sister, trembling but curious. Jason spoke softly, trying to calm them both, though he had no idea if his words mattered. The mother's eyes studied them carefully. She approached slowly, her gaze shifting between her daughters and Jason. For a long moment there was silence. Then, unexpectedly, she stopped and extended a glowing orb toward Jason. It hovered in the air, pulsating with soft light. Jason stared in disbelief. He had expected anger, confrontation, or punishment, but this, a reward. The alien mother spoke in her own language, melodic and commanding, but Jason could not understand the words. He held his hands out cautiously, signaling that he would accept without harm. Kira and Luma watched closely. Their small faces reflected surprise and curiosity. Jason gently took the glowing orb, feeling a warmth that was almost like a pulse of life. The mother nodded once, almost imperceptibly, then stepped back, her presence still powerful but no longer threatening. Jason turned the orb over in his hands. It was smooth, almost like glass, but lighter and warmer than anything he had felt before. Tiny lights moved inside it, forming patterns that seemed alive, almost as if the object itself had a mind. He realized that it was not just a gift. It was something valuable, something that could change understanding or technology in ways he could not yet imagine. The mother spoke again, this time pointing at her daughters and then at Jason. Kira and Luma mirrored her gestures, looking at him with wide eyes. Jason realized the meaning. She was acknowledging his courage, his care, and his protection of her daughters. For the first time, he felt the weight of respect from an alien species, not fear, not subordination, but genuine recognition. For a few moments, the jungle remained still. Even the small creatures seemed to sense the significance of the moment. Jason carefully studied the glowing orb, realizing it contained knowledge or power beyond his current understanding. He looked at the girls, who now smiled slightly, finally feeling safe with both their protector and their mother present. The alien mother finally spoke in simple gestures, pointing at the jungle, then at the orb, and finally at Jason. The meaning became clear. She was offering an alliance, a gift of trust and gratitude. Jason's heart swelled. This was more than he could have imagined. His courage, his intelligence, and his empathy had been recognized across species. He had acted out of instinct and care, and now the galaxy itself seemed to respond. The girls stepped forward, small hands reaching toward him. Kira carefully touched his arm, then Luma followed. Jason knelt to meet their height, gently placing a hand on each of their shoulders. He smiled, realizing that trust had grown into a bond that could never be broken. For a long moment the mother watched, then slowly backed away. She turned and walked into the jungle, her presence still commanding, leaving Jason and the girls with the glowing orb. Kira whispered softly, pointing at the orb and then at Jason, repeating gestures her mother had used. Jason nodded, understanding the significance. They were safe, recognized, and valued. Night fell, and the glowing jungle cast soft reflections on the orb. Jason placed it carefully beside him, aware that this was no ordinary gift. It was a symbol of respect, of connection, and perhaps a key to something much larger. The girls huddled close, finally able to sleep without fear. Jason kept watch, feeling pride and hope in his chest. He had acted bravely, and the reward had been more than he could have imagined. Above them, the jungle shimmered with life, predators and dangers lurking in the distance, but none dared approach. The mother's presence had marked them as protected, at least for now. Jason realized that courage, cleverness, and empathy were universal languages. His actions had spoken louder than words, crossing the barriers of species and worlds. As he looked at the sleeping girls and the glowing orb, Jason whispered softly, "We've survived today. And tomorrow we'll face whatever comes next together." And for the first time, he understood something deeply true. Human courage and kindness could shine even in the most alien and dangerous corners of the galaxy. The jungle of Zephora was quieter now, the air thick with the soft hum of glowing plants and distant creatures. Jason sat beside Kira and Luma, the glowing orb resting on the ground between them. The alien mother had disappeared into the shadows, leaving the human with a mysterious gift that pulsed with soft, alive light. Jason could feel its energy even from a distance. Strange, warm, and almost intelligent. Kira tilted her head, watching the orb carefully. Luma's small hands reached out as if she could touch the secrets hidden inside. Jason looked at the glowing object, realizing that it was more than a simple gift. It held knowledge, a message, perhaps even a tool that could alter the way humans understood the universe. But first he had to understand it. He carefully activated a small device from his belt. The orb responded immediately, the lights inside swirling and forming shapes, symbols, patterns, and even moving images. Jason's eyes widened. It was as if the orb was communicating, sharing information directly, but in a language he had never seen before. Kira and Luma watched with fascination. The older girl pointed at the orb, then at Jason as if to say, "It belongs to you now. It's safe." Luma mirrored her sister, her wide eyes reflecting curiosity and trust. Jason smiled softly. He had learned to read danger and trust instinctively, but now he needed patience and intelligence to unlock the secrets of the gift. He began experimenting carefully, moving the orb, shining light on it, and using his device to scan its energy patterns. Slowly, the shapes inside began to make sense. Maps of distant star systems, designs of advanced technology, and even holographic images of the alien world beyond Zephora. Jason's heart raced. This was knowledge beyond anything he had ever seen. Suddenly, the orb pulsed brighter, projecting a three-dimensional map of Zephora's jungle. Hidden pathways, predator nests, and safe zones glowed in soft green. Jason realized that the alien mother had not only given him a reward, but also a tool to navigate dangers safely, perhaps even to explore her world responsibly. Kira reached out, her small hand brushing the orb lightly. It pulsed in response, reacting to her touch. Luma followed, and Jason realized something remarkable. The orb could respond to trust and intent, not just actions. It had chosen him, and perhaps the girls, because they had acted with courage, cleverness, and empathy. Hours passed as Jason studied the orb. He discovered ways to create temporary shields, detect predators, and even communicate over short distances using light pulses. The girls watched and began to mimic his gestures, learning quickly. It was a moment of wonder, human intelligence and alien technology working together. Outside, the jungle seemed alive with anticipation. Distant cries and rustling leaves hinted that not all dangers had passed. Predators still lurked, and scouts from the hostile alien faction could return at any moment. But Jason felt prepared. The orb was a tool, yes, but it also amplified the courage and cleverness he had used to protect the girls before. Late in the afternoon, a shadow moved across the jungle canopy. Jason noticed it immediately. 2 scouts from the alien faction, the same ones that had stalked them before, were approaching. They moved silently, their glowing eyes fixed on the trio. Jason's pulse quickened, but he stayed calm. This was the moment to test the orb. He activated a small light shield which expanded to cover the clearing. The scouts hissed in frustration, unable to see or reach them. Then, using a sequence he had discovered while experimenting, he projected a series of bright flashes and holographic images, creating the illusion of multiple humans moving around the jungle. The scouts froze, confused, then retreated into the shadows, unable to locate the real targets. Kira and Luma stared at Jason in awe. They had never seen such cleverness, such bravery combined with intelligence. Jason knelt beside them, showing them that courage was not just about fighting, but also about thinking, planning, and using tools wisely. The girls' trust deepened further. They had learned that this human could, hidden by hanging vines. It was tight, but it would conceal them from the scouts. As they entered, Jason quickly set up a light barrier at the entrance, hiding their presence. The girls collapsed behind the protection, exhausted but relieved. Jason scanned the area outside with his device. The scouts had paused, unsure of where the humans had gone. After a few tense minutes, the shadowy figures disappeared into the jungle, still searching, still silent. Inside the cave, the girls finally spoke to each other. Kira whispered something to Luma, and the younger one nodded. Jason did not understand the words, but he could sense their gratitude. They had survived because of his courage and quick thinking. For the first time, the girls seemed to relax slightly, realizing they could trust him. Jason crouched beside them, keeping a protective stance. He activated a small holographic map, showing paths through the jungle and potential dangers. The girls watched silently, absorbing every detail. They were learning that humans could think ahead, plan, and face danger without panic. They were witnessing courage and intelligence in action. Hours passed, and the jungle seemed to settle for a moment. But Jason knew better. The hidden threat was still out there. Other scouts, predators, or unknown dangers could appear at any moment. The girls clung to each other, now watching him with admiration. They were beginning to understand that being small did not mean being powerless if someone brave and clever stood by their side. As night fell, the jungle glowed in eerie colors, and distant cries of unknown creatures echoed. Jason kept the girls close, scanning constantly, but he allowed a small smile. They had survived the day, learned trust, and formed a bond. The hidden threat might still be out there, but for now, they were safe. Kira placed a small hand on Jason's arm, a silent gesture of thanks. Luma mirrored her sister, her eyes wide with admiration. Jason understood. It was more than gratitude. It was trust, respect, and the beginning of a bond that could survive even the deadliest threats of Zephora. The jungle night stretched on, full of whispers, movements, and hidden eyes. Jason stayed awake, watching, ready to protect the two tiny alien girls from any threat, known or unknown. They had survived the first day together, but the jungle had many more dangers waiting, and he was determined that no shadow, predator, or hidden threat would harm them while he stood there. The next morning, the jungle of Zephora seemed calmer, but Jason knew better than to trust appearances. The glowing plants shimmered in the faint light, and small creatures scuttled through the undergrowth. The air carried the faint hum of distant predators and the soft rustle of hidden dangers. Yet today, something had changed. The girls were no longer hiding behind him. Kira, the older of the two, stepped cautiously forward. Her tiny hand clutched a small piece of fruit she had picked from the alien trees. Luma, the younger one, hesitated, peeking out from behind her sister, her wide eyes darting at every shadow. Jason watched them carefully, a small smile forming. Trust was not built in a day, but this was the first step. He knelt down, lowering himself to their level, and gestured for them to follow him. The girls exchanged glances, then slowly began to move forward. Jason led the way through the glowing jungle, using his devices to scan for predators and hidden dangers. Every step was deliberate, careful, but it allowed the girls to see that he knew how to keep them safe. Hours passed as they navigated narrow paths and dense vegetation. Kira occasionally stumbled over roots, and Jason was quick to reach out, steadying her with a calm hand. Luma mirrored her sister, slowly gaining confidence. For the first time, the girls seemed to understand that they were not alone, and that this human was different from anyone they had ever known. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the nearby trees. A predator, its glowing eyes fixed on them, slinked into view. The girls froze, their hands gripping each other tightly. Jason did not panic. He activated a small device that emitted a blinding pulse of light, causing the predator to hiss and retreat into the shadows. The girls stared at him in awe. They began to realize that courage was not just strength, it was thinking quickly and acting wisely. Kira stepped closer to Jason, her small hand brushing against his arm. Luma followed cautiously, glancing up at him for reassurance. Jason knelt and spoke softly, pointing at a narrow stream ahead. He used simple gestures to show them they would cross it safely together. The girls nodded, their trust growing with each step. As they moved, the jungle seemed to test them further. A section of the path had collapsed, revealing jagged rocks below. The girls hesitated, their tiny bodies trembling. Jason carefully guided them along a safer route, using his devices to create temporary light paths and barriers. The girls followed without complaint, beginning to mirror his actions and showing signs of confidence. By midday, they reached a small clearing. The sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting soft patterns on the ground. For the first time, the girls stopped to rest. Kira picked up a glowing flower and showed it to Jason, who nodded approvingly. Luma mimicked her sister, holding out a small stone she had found. It was their way of saying thanks, silent but meaningful. Jason smiled, realizing that trust had begun to take root. The girls were learning that he would protect them, that he could face danger and keep them safe. And in return, he could see their intelligence, curiosity, and resilience. They were not helpless. They were small, clever beings capable of learning and adapting. The calm did not last long. A rustle came from the undergrowth, and two more shadowy figures appeared. Scouts from the hostile alien faction Jason had sensed the day before. Their glowing eyes scanned the clearing, searching for the girls. Kira grabbed Luma, whispering something in her language. Jason did not understand, but he sensed urgency. He acted quickly, using his pulse device to create a series of light flashes that distracted the scouts. While they were confused, Jason led the girls to a hidden path, moving silently and carefully. The scouts hissed and investigated the flashes but could not find them. Once again, the humans' cleverness had saved their lives. By evening, they reached a safe zone, a small cave partially hidden by vines and glowing moss. Jason set up protective barriers and sensors around the entrance. The girls collapsed inside, exhausted but relieved. For the first time, Kira and Luma did not cling to each other in fear. They looked at Jason with curiosity, respect, and trust. That night, as the jungle hummed with life, Jason kept watch while the girls slept. He reflected on the day. Trust was fragile, especially in a world as dangerous as Zyphora. But the girls had taken the first step. They had begun to understand courage, cleverness, and protection. They had begun to see that humans could be more than just strange, large beings. They could be allies, teachers, and guardians. In the dim glow of the cave, Kira reached out a tiny hand and touched Jason's arm. Luma followed, placing her small hand over her sister's. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Jason smiled softly, understanding that a bond was forming, one built on trust, courage, and shared survival. Outside, the jungle remained alive with unseen dangers, but inside the cave, there was a small sense of safety and hope. Jason knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hostile scouts would return, predators would still hunt, and the girl's mother might come seeking answers. But for now, trust had begun, and that was the foundation of everything to come. As the twin moons rose over the jungle canopy, their soft light illuminating the cave, Jason whispered to the sleeping girls, "We'll face whatever comes next. Together." And for the first time, the girls did not feel fear. They felt hope and courage, thanks to the human who had saved them. The alien jungle of Zyphora was alive with strange sounds and glowing colors. Giant plants swayed in the wind, and the air shimmered with tiny lights like floating stars. Most travelers avoided this place. It was too dangerous. Predators lurked behind every rock, and the terrain itself seemed alive, ready to swallow the unwary. But tonight, a lone human moved carefully through the jungle, his eyes scanning every shadow. His name was Jason, an explorer from a distant planet. He had been mapping uncharted worlds for years, but something about this jungle felt different. The air was tense, almost whispering warnings he could not understand. And then he heard it, a small, frightened cry. Jason froze, listening. The sound came again, tiny and desperate. He followed it cautiously, stepping over glowing roots and avoiding the sharp thorns that could pierce his suit. The cries led him to a clearing where he saw them, two tiny alien girls no taller than his knee, huddled together. Their skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, and their wide eyes reflected fear and confusion. Before he could react, a predator leapt from the shadows, a creature with razor-sharp claws and glowing red eyes. It hissed, ready to strike the girls. Jason's heart pounded, but he acted quickly. He raised a small device from his belt. A pulse of light shot out, blinding the predator for a moment and forcing it to retreat. The girls gasped, staring at him with awe and fear. "Stay behind me," Jason whispered, his voice calm but firm. He did not know if they understood him, but his tone carried authority. The predator circled again, testing the human strength. Jason activated another device, creating a shimmering barrier between him and the creature. The predator hissed, confused, and finally slunk back into the jungle shadows. The girls, shaking and frightened, looked at Jason with wide eyes. One of them, the older of the two, stepped forward slowly. Her tiny hand reached toward him, as if to trust him. Jason knelt down, careful not to frighten them further, and offered a hand. Hesitantly, she took it. The younger girl followed, trembling, but also reaching for safety. Jason led them through the clearing, moving carefully but quickly. The jungle was full of hidden dangers, twisting roots that could trip them, glowing plants that could shock with even a touch, and unseen predators that might be drawn by the light of his devices. Every step required focus. Every moment was a test of courage. As they moved, Jason noticed something strange. The girls seemed intelligent even in their fear. They watched his every move, learning from him silently. He realized they had been abandoned, left to face the dangers of the jungle alone. His heart ached for them. No being deserved such fear, especially not two small, innocent lives. Hours passed as they navigated the treacherous jungle. Jason used his devices to scan for predators, mark safe paths, and create small light barriers to guide the girls. The older girl began to relax slightly, mimicking his careful steps. The younger one clung tightly to her sister but started to trust Jason as well. Slowly, a fragile bond began to form. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them. A larger predator, even more menacing than the first, emerged from the shadows. Its massive claws dug into the soil, and its glowing eyes fixed on the girls. Jason's heart raced, but he did not panic. He quickly activated a series of devices, creating a pulse of light that disoriented the creature. Then, using a small drone from his belt, he distracted it, drawing it away from the girls. The girls watched in awe. Jason was not only brave but clever. He faced danger without fear, using tools and intelligence instead of recklessness. For the first time, the girls felt hope that someone could protect them. Finally, they reached a small clearing with a natural shelter formed by giant roots. Jason set up a temporary safe zone, creating a barrier around the area to keep predators away. The girls collapsed behind the protection, exhausted but safe. They looked at him, eyes wide, as if silently asking who he was and why he had saved them. Jason knelt before them, keeping his distance but showing care. He gestured for them to rest, offering small packs of food he had brought. The older girl took it first, hesitating, then began to eat. The younger one followed, glancing up at Jason occasionally, her eyes filled with cautious curiosity. Night fell, and the jungle glowed in eerie beauty. Strange creatures called from the shadows, but the girls were safe. Jason kept watch, scanning for any threats, his devices lighting the clearing. He thought about their mother, if she was still alive, if she would come looking for them. But for now, he had done everything he could. As the hours passed, the girls slowly began to relax. The older one finally spoke a few words in their own language, pointing at Jason. He did not understand the words, but he smiled, understanding the meaning. They were trying to say thank you. The younger girl mirrored her sister, placing a small hand on Jason's arm. It was a tiny gesture, but it meant trust, a bond forming between human and alien. Jason looked up at the glowing jungle canopy. The predators were still out there. The dangers were still real. But he felt a sense of purpose. These two small beings had been abandoned, and he had chosen to protect them. Courage, cleverness, and empathy were the only weapons he had, and they had worked. Before sleep claimed the girls, they huddled close together, and Jason made sure the barrier held strong. He knew the next day could bring more challenges. The jungle was unpredictable, and the girl's mother might arrive. But for now, he had achieved the impossible. He had rescued 2 lives, small and fragile, from almost certain death. And in that moment, in the glowing heart of the alien jungle, Jason realized something important. Being human meant more than strength. It meant courage, cleverness, and the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Tonight, he had done all 3. The 2 little alien girls drifted to sleep, their trust in the human growing, even without words. And Jason stayed awake, watching the jungle, ready for whatever came next. The first step of an extraordinary story had begun. The jungle was quieter than usual the next morning, but that did not make it safe. "Jason," The human who had rescued the two tiny alien girls moved carefully through the glowing undergrowth. The girls followed him closely, still timid but beginning to trust him. Their small hands held each other tightly, and every now and then, their wide eyes darted at the shadows. Jason scanned the area with his device. Sensors blinked softly, detecting movement far beyond what the human eye could see. He knew the jungle was filled with dangers, predators, venomous plants, and creatures that could attack without warning. But there was another kind of danger tonight, one that was silent and watching. The older girl, whom Jason had learned to call Kira by mimicking sounds, clung to his side. Her younger sister, Luma, peeked out from behind her, eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Jason smiled faintly, showing them they had nothing to fear as long as they stayed close. He had faced worse on other worlds, and this was just another challenge. Suddenly, a rustle came from the treetops above. Jason froze. His instinct screamed danger. The girls stiffened beside him. Nothing moved in the shadows below, yet the feeling of being watched grew stronger. It was not a predator, they were different. The presence was intelligent, observing, calculating. Jason held up a small hand, signaling the girls to stay quiet. Slowly, he activated a low-pulse device that sent out a quiet signal to reveal hidden entities. In the distance, two figures emerged, tall, shadowy beings with glowing eyes, moving silently through the jungle. They were not ordinary predators. These were scouts, sent by a hostile alien faction that seemed to know about the girls. Kira's small hands trembled. She whispered something in her language, pointing at the shadows. Jason did not understand her words, but he could sense her warning. He knew that if these beings got too close, the girls could be in grave danger. They had no weapons, no way to fight. Only trust and clever thinking could save them now. Jason quickly scanned the terrain. A narrow gorge ran nearby with sharp rocks below and thick vegetation along the sides. If they moved carefully, they could evade the scouts. He signaled to the girls, pointing at the path. Kira nodded, understanding the urgency, while Luma clung even closer, silent with fear. They moved slowly, keeping low to avoid detection. The shadowy scouts moved with uncanny silence, scanning the area for any trace of the girls. Jason's pulse device gave off a faint glow, enough to confuse senses but not reveal their exact position. Every step was tense. One wrong movement, and they could be spotted. Halfway through the gorge, the ground shook slightly. Jason looked up to see a predator above them, perched on a branch, its red eyes fixed on the human and the girls. The scouts had not noticed it yet, giving Jason a chance. He activated a small flare device, startling the predator. It hissed and leapt into the jungle, disappearing into the shadows. The girls gasped, staring at him with awe. Jason whispered softly, "We must keep moving. Stay close." He held Kira's small hand while Luma followed, stepping carefully along the rocks. He led them through the winding paths of the gorge, avoiding loose stones and dangerous plants that could zap them with venom. The girls mirrored his movements, learning silently, growing braver with every step. The scouts were not far behind. Jason could feel the tension building. They were patient, waiting, observing. He needed to find a place to hide, a safe zone where the girls could rest. Up ahead, he spotted a cave partially,